Hey, y'all. It's Wednesday in South Carolina. Welcome to the Touchdowns Podcast. I'm your host, Beck Dugas, along with my brother, Thomas. We have a great episode today talking about the upcoming action this weekend, South Carolina, Kentucky, taking a listener question. The SEC schedules were released for the next 4 years yesterday. Final confirmation. Some exciting things to talk about with what the outlook is for the next 4 years. And then we're always, going around the nation talking about some other games going on and some other news from around the country in college football, and then wrapping it up as always on our Wednesday episodes with the DB Blitz and our gambling picks. Um, so let's dive into it. We're playing Kentucky this weekend. It's a night game in Williams-Brice, SEC Network, 7:45 p.m. or excuse me, ESPN. Little background on Kentucky. Beamer is 3-1 versus Kentucky. They're led by Mark Stoops. Overall, this series is 21-14 in favor of the Gamecocks. It was a series that was long dominated throughout our childhoods. Thomas and I, Kentucky's, outside of Vanderbilt, Kentucky's probably the one team that Thomas and I grew up and we didn't have a huge disdain for because we would actually consistently beat Kentucky as opposed to the majority of SEC teams that Carolina played.
Freshman year at Carolina was Connor Shaw's first start. Or like when we played Kentucky, that was Connor Shaw's first start, and we beat Kentucky 54-3. That is kind of how it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. And then it got into a real weird time, towards the end of the Spurrier era and into Muschamp, where Kentucky really dominated this matchup. And Beamer's found a way to right that ship. Like I mentioned, he's 3-1 against the Wildcats in his tenure at South Carolina. So little notes on Kentucky. They're led by starting quarterback Cutter Boley. He is a freshman. He actually just won the job. They had ninth-year senior Zach Calzada. I mean, talk about LinkedIn, bro. That guy has officially lost the job, and I, don't anticipate him being able to get any more eligibility. But it's Cutter Boley's team now. He started against Eastern Michigan last week. He's thrown for 200. I was looking at his stats here. He threw for, sorry, let me get it pulled up. 240 yards in that game against Eastern Michigan. Again, Eastern Michigan not a quality Power Four opponent, but he was able to be effective. They're led by their running game though. They have two good backs, Seth McGowan and Dante Dowdle. Both guys average over 5.5 yards per carry. Two back system. Both are over 200 yards total on the season. So they, young quarterback's best friend is a good running game. So that can, we definitely need to key on the run and make sure that we force Cutter Boley to make some plays. As a freshman, this is going to be his first road start at night in Willie B. So fans, obviously, we want to make a difference in this game, and I think we can. Despite the last two losses, this is a sellout crowd. So I'm expecting a pretty rowdy atmosphere. I will be in the stadium on Saturday, my first game this year. Finally have the schedule to allow me to get down to Columbia, so I'm looking forward to a hell of a day. Saturday, I'll be stopping by Touchdowns and 5 Points before heading to the tailgate. So again, this is going to be a really important game for Carolina. A little bit more on Kentucky. They have their leading tackler is Alex Afari Jr. And they have a DB, Ty Bryant, has two INTs, so a playmaker in the secondary. But this team is widely considered probably the bottom dog in the SEC. They excuse me. They don't have um, they played Ole Miss. They played them well. Only lost at home by a touchdown. Um, but they have two wins over non-power four teams. Um, the Cox are favored by 6.5. What are your thoughts, Thomas, on this game? And what do you see happening on Saturday night?
Yeah, so if you take a closer look at how they won the Eastern Michigan game, they had a very effective rushing attack. As a team, they averaged 5.5 yards per carry. Uh, the new quarterback, while he did have over 200 yards, two touchdowns, and no interceptions, he only completed about 50% of his passes. So, he was able to lean on the running game against Eastern Michigan. What I'm hoping that we're able to do, especially with Judge Collier potentially coming back, is play a lot of man coverage, just kind of stack the box, take the running game away from them. I would say the strength of Kentucky's offense is definitely going to be their O line and their running backs. But if we can, play the numbers game, you know, put our corners on some islands and just play close to the line of scrimmage and have a better week of tackling this week than we had against Missouri, I think we can kind of smother that running game, force a freshman who's making his first road start in the SEC to beat us with his arm, and hopefully he'll be unable to do that. On the other side of the ball, Mark Stoops is a defensive coach, and I'm sure that they will have a physical, tough unit. But I think each week that goes by, our offense gets a little bit better. Still want to see the O line play a lot better. Obviously, our running game was terrible against Missouri. We have to be more effective than that. But if we can clean up the procedural penalties, the false starts, the illegal motions, illegal substitutions, anything that's going to put you behind the chains before you even snap the ball. And then if Lenoris can be a little bit more effective in not taking some of these sacks, I think we'll be able to move the ball on them, and our offense will continue to look better and better.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how they manage Lenoris as a runner. I know we had some design runs against Missouri, but he didn't really look like he was committed to running the football in that game. And so maybe as time heals all, and so hopefully I think he'll be more ready to exert contact and welcome contact from the defense in some of these design runs, and maybe we can wrinkle in some read option stuff to hopefully keep that defense off balance. But yeah, I'm with you. I want to see consistency. I would love to see very few penalties. I think to your point, the offense is getting better. Way more explosives against Missouri than any other game this year, and Missouri was probably the best defense we played all year.
And we
Um,
left a lot out there. Like
yeah,
we could have
exactly,
more than we had.
exactly.
If Mazio squeezes that ball, that's another one. Uh, I mentioned it in the recap, but on one of those passes where Missouri had the opportunity to intercept it, but they dropped it, the throw was affected by a hit on Lenoris, and if he had a half second longer to step into the throw, we had a wide open guy down the sideline on a wheel route. So like we showed the ability to hit some explosives, and there was even more to be had. So I'm hoping that trend continues.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious to see the running back rotation. I know Matthew Fuller got a couple carries against Missouri. We obviously haven't been successful at all running the football. Rasul's best play of the year was against Virginia Tech, and it was not because of it was all him. He made a guy miss in the backfield, and so hopefully we get some push. But I think there might be some indications that Matthew Fuller is just able to get tough yards where there aren't holes, and so that he might get more carries over Oscar and Rasul just because he's going to get 3 instead of 0. And if we can avoid 3rd and 9, I think in the group chat, someone said this is we're dead last in the country in third and or in yards average on 3rd down, and yards average to get to pick up a 1st down on 3rd down. Don't know if I made that clear, but dead last in the country. That's not a recipe for success, and it's obviously the lack of run game and the penalties that are the reason. And any Gamecock fan would sit there and say that's the reason. But the moral of the story is, if we can't get that corrected, we're going to have to rely on explosives, which fortunately we saw get some against Missouri, but that's not winning football. You're not going to be able to consistently win if that's your formula. So hopefully we can get some consistency in the running game, continue to have those, some of those freshman receivers step up. Dre Jacobs is looking like the man, at least a number 2 guy along with Nick. Thank you, Ross. Also 130th out of 145 in rush yards per game. Yeah, that's the story. We got to get some consistency in that aspect of the game to be able to move the chains and again take those shots, because LaNorris can make the explosive plays, but we can't just. We have to have some sort of consistency to keep the defense rested. We can't just hit a bomb and go 3 and out, because then we haven't won time of possession in any game this year, because Virginia Tech, it was the punt return and the big play to Nick that was the difference. South Carolina State, we didn't control the ball. We had 2 punt returns for touchdowns. Vanderbilt and Missouri both were able to run the ball on us and keep our defense on the field, and so the defense wears down. And so we got to, even if we're not scoring points every drive, we can't have these consistent 3 and outs that are putting our defense in precarious positions, because, again, we saw it against Missouri. The tackling wasn't there, obviously, but a lot of times tackling, you can attribute that bad tackling to fatigue, and these guys are worn down because we're not having consistent drives on offense and getting the defense rest. And that's what good teams do. That's what Missouri did. They just wore us down, and we couldn't stop them in the 4th. They had 2 running backs that were just running through us because we couldn't stop the run, and we couldn't also sustain drives on the other side. So I'm looking forward to that. Again, I think this is a super winnable game at home against a freshman quarterback making his first start. This is a great opportunity to get some positive momentum going into the bye week. Any other things that you want to see in this game, Thomas, or that you feel like the listeners should know about this game? What should they be thinking going into this game? If they're walking into the stadium, how should they feel on Saturday night?
In terms of what I want to see a decisive victory. If obviously the most important thing is that we win the game, but if this is another game where we come out and play sloppy and struggle the whole way through and win by a field goal, yeah, it's a win, but it's just another data point that we are so far away from where we thought we would be and where we want to be this season. It has been common under Beamer that we have progressed in a positive direction as the season progresses. And I know that eventually Carolina fans are going to want us to be able to come out and play dominant football from the start of week one to the end of the season. But for now, as long as we continue to get better as the season goes on, there is still a lot out there for us to accomplish this year. But that starts this Saturday with dominating Kentucky. I don't want this to be a close game. I would like us to win. I would like this to be our most decisive victory of the season. And I don't see any reason why it can't be.
I agree. I think we should win this game and win it comfortably. Yeah, anything else, and again, you're talking about focus. It's just we need to dominate, and so that the narrative around the team is that we've figured some things out going into the bye. We can use the bye to get healthy, and we have positive momentum going into
We
the
need to have
home stretch of the
we need to have confidence
SEC.
going into the bye week that we have found something and we can go on a little bit of a run here in this middle part of the schedule.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm with you there. I think to wrap up, thoughts on Kentucky. Again, this is a game we should win. I'm expecting us to win big, and so I hope everyone tunes in on ESPN Saturday night or gets their butt to Willie B to witness this game, and the Gamecocks get a victory. With that, we're going to jump to our listener question presented by Touchdowns 5 Points. Please go down to 5 Points and visit Touchdowns. Best Philly cheesesteak in Columbia. Great wings, great service, bartenders, cold drinks. Great place to watch a game, whether it be college football, NFL, whatever sport you prefer. Get down to Touchdowns for all your sports watching activity. Great food, great atmosphere. Touchdowns 5 Points. Listener question comes from David, class of 2017. The defense we saw week one didn't show up against Missouri or Vandy. We've missed a lot of tackles, especially against Missouri. How does this kind of thing get fixed in season? Thomas, I'll let you take a stab at that one first.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think that fans kind of undervalue how matchups affect football on a week-to-week basis and how there's not really such a thing as I mean there are good teams and bad teams, but within that, a team's defense might be their strength, the team's offense might be their strength, and then even within that, these individual matchups are going to have a huge impact on how everybody looks week to week. For example, regardless of what our defense becomes this year, every single week, the left tackle that has to block Dylan is probably going to have his toughest assignment of the year. So that's just one little wrinkle that when you're playing us, that's going to affect the other team's offensive game plan, and it may impact how that left tackle plays that week. When it comes to Missouri and Vandy, I saw on Twitter this week that they have both been graded out as top 5 offensive lines in the country thus far this season. Missouri, I think, has the best running back in the country right now. Peyton Williams was asked post-game about a missed tackle he had on Missouri's go-ahead touchdown run, so I was curious about the play, and I went and watched it. It was a play where Peyton is the extra guy. They didn't have a blocker for him, and
He was right there in the hole.
He came down in the hole and had an opportunity to make a play slightly behind or right at the line of scrimmage. And I don't know if it was nerves or maybe he was kind of banged up and his shoulder was hurting and he just was kind of shying away from contact. But what ended up happening was he went low, and obviously he didn't make the tackle. But not even that, he didn't even slow the guy down enough for somebody else to make the tackle. Even if he just gets trucked in that situation, he stops the running back's momentum enough to have his teammates rally to it. But he took accountability for it, and he basically said that's just a play that I have to make. And I don't know why we made more of those plays week one than we have made against Vanderbilt and Missouri. I think it's definitely partly due to the fact that Vanderbilt and Missouri are better teams and have better running backs and a better rushing attack than Virginia Tech had. But sometimes the answer is we just have to be tougher and play better. There's no scheme that would have fixed what happened on that play. He was unblocked and he was where he was supposed to be. He just did not make the play. So, Bakari Swain said that they've done a lot of tackling drills in practice this week. I'm sure it's been a point of emphasis, and hopefully we see that translate to the field against Kentucky and for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Yeah. To echo that, I was going to say the obvious, how does this get fixed in season? It was, I was going to go to the Bakari Swain quote where he said they were working on tackling in practice. I mean, that's what you have to do, make it a point of emphasis. It was embarrassed. I think probably the defense was embarrassed after watching the tape and hearing the critics. And it was an embarrassing effort. And you don't, again, as a fan, we don't know we can't measure effort. There's not a statistic that measures effort. There are statistics and numbers that measure missed tackles, and I just think this team maybe, we thought, Fred Johnson, he played so good against Virginia Tech. We're like, all right, this is our guy, this is our dog. Like even from last year's team, Demetrius Knight, Nicky Manwari, Kyle Kennard, not only were they great players, but they were dogs and leaders. And I think maybe that's one thing we're overvaluing. We talked about the loss of those guys just from a talent perspective and production perspective, but maybe we underestimated their leadership abilities. And because I'm looking at this defense, and I mean, Dylan is our best player, and he's awesome as a player, but he's shown a lot of immaturity this year, early in the year. And I know we talked about it. A lot of it's frustration from not being able to get penalties drawn when he's clearly being held. But he hasn't shown, great leadership and that's just evident through his actions on the field, getting kicked out of the Vanderbilt game. There's some other things in the Missouri game that happened. Potential late hits that weren't called, and some loafs after the ball got away from him. But I don't know that we have those type of guys. Our favorite guy. I mean, we were around for the Clowney era. That's when we were in school, and Clowney was clearly the best player on our defense. But DJ Swearinger, Jungle Boy, was the heart and soul.
Yes.
I mean, he was the guy. He was the guy that was the leader of that defense, even though he wasn't the best player. And we had great players around him, and but he was the guy that everyone looked to and said, "All right, he sets the tone for us." And he's in pregame intercepting passes from the opposing quarterbacks and throwing the ball and just tone setting. Like it was just a different level of tone setting, and I don't know that we have that tone setter. I was hoping it was going to be Fred, and he can still grow into that, but he's not there right now, and so I think maybe that's what this defense is lacking. I mean, we haven't really, one of the things Clayton White hangs his hat on is forcing turnovers. We haven't really been great at forcing turnovers. I know we got the pick against Mizzou, but I mean, in the early Beamer years when the talent cupboard was bare, um, the defense we won games because the defense figured out a way to turn the ball over, um, and we're not getting that. And so again, we're consistently having to defend these. We can't get off the field on third down, so our offense isn't giving us any help. So we're tired. We can't get off the field, and it just is. We've gotten worn down the last two games. So hopefully, freshman quarterback, we can force some turnovers. And to the point of the question, I do think we can fix this. I would love to see some leaders step up from a player standpoint, and it continues to need to be a point of emphasis. And we talked about Kentucky's got two good backs. We're going to have to tackle. We're going to have to tackle this week and get off the field, um, you know, via turnover or getting some stops on third down, and hopefully we'll see that. So appreciate the question, David.
Thank you, David.
And again, the listener questions, please submit those on Twitter or Instagram DM. Also, feel free to text me or Thomas if you have our phone numbers. But looking forward to more listener questions. And as always, the listener questions are sponsored by TDs in 5 points. Quick thing I want to jump to that's just happened yesterday, and I think it's interesting and worth talking about. The SEC schedule release. So that for those who don't know, the SEC released schedules for the next 4 years for football. The system will be three permanent opponents, and then the other 6 will rotate each year. Love this setup. In a 4-year period, every SEC team will get the chance to play on the road in every stadium and get the chance to host every other SEC team at their own stadium. So, as a student, you not only have the chance to witness every team come to Willie B, but you also have the chance to go to every other SEC stadium in your 4 years in school. So 5 for some of us, 6 for others. So you would even have more opportunity if you're like Thomas and I. But I want to talk about this and get your thoughts. I really love it. The setup. I like our permanent opponents, Georgia, Florida, and Kentucky. Kentucky, for obvious reasons, just I hate Kentucky and Mark Stoops, and they're also a bottom feeder in the SEC, so that's always nice to play a weaker opponent. Florida, I think that's a great game. I've been to the Swamp 3 times. I'm 0-3, but Florida's always a great game, and we have Spurrier, they have Spurrier. And there was always a little bit of that rivalry growing up. And so I like to see Florida. They're an old SEC East, rival. And then Georgia, which is, the obvious one. I think, probably Georgia fans wouldn't consider South Carolina a top tier rival, and maybe South Carolina fans would consider Georgia more of a rival. But again, we played Georgia more than any other team in the SEC. It goes back, we played them well before we joined the SEC, and we played them every year since we joined the SEC until these last couple years when the schedule changes happen. So I'd love to see Georgia back on the schedule, going to Athens every other year, and having them come to Columbia every other year. I just think that's, despite them being a top tier program, and that's always a tough game to win. I just think for the fans, that's a great permanent opponent for us, and I'd like to see that game back on the schedule. So, what are your thoughts on this, Thomas? The SEC schedule for the next 4 years.
Yeah, so I love our permanents. I love that they are all traditional SEC East teams. I have really hated playing Texas A&M and Missouri, and it has really nothing to do with our win-loss record against them, which hasn't been great. That's probably a factor, but I don't really have any desire to go to Columbia, Missouri for a game. I know I should go to Texas A&M at least once because of their stadium and the 12th man, but at the same time, it's like Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, they make way more sense geographically, and those are road trips that I deem a lot more fun to have on a bi-yearly basis than some of these SEC West teams that we've been um, stuck with since the first conference expansion. In terms of whether it's easy or not, I think that they probably put a lot of effort into doing their best to balance it out for everybody. But at the end of the day, these are the three permanents, and then we have six rotating. We're all playing 9 conference games every year. The schedules are all going to be crazy every year. I mean, if you look at it, and especially with us playing Clemson and some of the other non-conference games that we've already had scheduled, I mean, the schedules are going to be ridiculous. I'm not too worried about that because I think that one of two things, if not both things, are going to happen, which is they're going to find a way to quantify strength of schedule and make that a very important metric into picking the field, or they're going to expand the field. You know, Sankey is not going to let the SEC moving to 9 conference games hurt our conference's ability to remain the dominant conference in college football in terms of being able to get into the playoff. So the schedule is always going to be hard. It's only going to get harder. But if we want to be what we want to be, you know, if we're good enough to win the national championship, we'll be good enough to navigate these schedules to the extent to where we can get into the field. Like, I think that once we go to 9 conference games, especially with our non-conference schedule, you know, we're going to be able to make the playoff, whether it's a 12-team playoff or a 16-team playoff with a 9-3 record. If it's a 16-team playoff, we might be able to get in at 8-4 with who we're going to be playing the next 4 years. So I think it's better. You know, I would much rather have a 5th SEC home game every other year rather than Coastal Carolina. No disrespect to Coastal. It's just more fun to play a bigger, better team at home. So I'm all for it. I love the permanents. I love more big-time games every single week. I think it's better for the fan experience. But, yeah, I mean, the schedules are going to be tough. It is what it is.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I don't think I love it too. I'm the more big games, the better. I'm still a believer in the need to play lower level competition as far as supporting those programs. Your idea for having the a preseason game for college football, um, and having that be an in-state FCS program like South Carolina State or Furman or Wofford or something like that. I love that idea. But yes, the 9 conference games, I think it's great. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, in 2026 and 2027, we're playing Miami. Miami comes to Columbia in 26, and we go there in 27. We got UNC a home and away with UNC in 2028 and 2029. So just more big games. Obviously, the annual rivalry game with Clemson. So just more big games on the schedule, and I think it just makes it more fun for the fans. So, and yeah, and the strength of schedule thing is going to work itself out. In all this college football landscape, the place you want to be is the SEC or the Big Ten, because those two conferences are really driving the boat as far as what the expansion is going to look like. And so we're in the right conference, and I don't have any doubts that the conference will get taken care of. And really, it's probably the Big 12 and the ACC and uh, the Pac-2 and the group of five that are really maybe worried about what could happen with
I think for the
this
time
conference.
being, expansion has kind of settled down. The thing that I believe is that's going to potentially be the catalyst that reignites all of it is when Notre Dame makes a move. If they end up not making the field this year because they started 0-2, and then they can't get in with an at large because they're not in a conference. Is that what it's going to take for the brass at Notre Dame to say, okay, this is impacting us negatively being an independent, it's time for us to join up? And them, when they make their move to wherever they go, that is going to be the thing that I think fires up the conference realignment machine again.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I'm overall excited. I think this is a great thing for the SEC. It's a good thing for us as fans. So I'm excited for that. Um, so obviously we'll talk more about schedules and future opponents and how that'll shake out. But just initial reactions there on the SEC schedule release through 2029. Going around the nation, let's talk about some of the stuff going around the nation. Uh, Mike Gundy got fired at Oklahoma State. I was surprised by this. I mean, he's an Oklahoma State guy. He'd been there for forever. I thought they were at least going to let him finish the season, and kind of a dumpster fire there. But it's just another domino in the coaching carousel. There's already been two other firings that we talked about at Virginia Tech and UCLA. Hot seats getting hotter for Billy down in Gainesville, and as well as Sam Pittman in Arkansas. Like I said, hopefully he does get canned, and we can get him to Columbia. But uh, any thoughts on just the coaching carousel? Is it worth talking about right now, Thomas, or do you just think let this thing shake out and worry about it in the off season?
I mean, none of the jobs that have opened up so far are really that intriguing to me. If if the Florida job comes open, I think that is the one that is going to start or could start a major domino effect. Uh, as far as Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, and UCLA are concerned, I don't know that any of those jobs are going to lure away like a big profile coach from a school that's like in a good position right now. If Florida comes open, that is a job that might take a coach from a team that is not necessarily in a bad spot right now, which is where
Yeah,
you get like the major reshuffling.
right. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Um, yeah, I mean, but I just think that's a good point, Ross. But I just think it shows that in today's day in college football, I mean, people aren't waiting. People want results, and so I think you're going to see more of this where teams don't have to wait until the end of the season, and they're going to start doing this now. And the pressure is the highest it's ever been, just from fans and boosters, because again, more money's involved, and it's visible money now. People are there's no longer these bagmen, and there's probably still bagmen, but it's very visible who's giving money, and it's a lot of the common fans are chipping into these collectives. A lot of the big boosters are coming out of pocket to pay for players. It's not just, hey, we need facilities, we need this, we need that. Like, it's straight up roster building, and so they're going to demand results. So yeah, I think it's pretty crazy. 3 coaches already fired, and we're only in week 4 or week 5. But yeah, I think there's more to come this season. Clemson 1-3. Again, their record is 1-3. They got rocked by Syracuse this past weekend.
They have a
They
bye.
got another.
They play North Carolina next weekend.
Oh, all right. Well, good for them. Good for them. They don't have to suffer this weekend and watch that team play. So shout out to all my Clemson buddies. Enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, I'm loving the collapse, although I'm not really getting to enjoy it quite as much as I would like to, because we're also not playing as well as we had hoped. If
we should be 4-0.
4-0 right now, or even 3-1, I would be absolutely getting after some Clemson fans right now. But I have to wait until we play a little bit better before I can really unleash. But I'm still enjoying.
Yeah.
I'm still enjoying their tears.
Yeah, 100%. Great slate of games this weekend. We're going to talk about some on the DB Blitz, but I'll just ask you, Thomas, what's the again, great slate of games. What is the one game you got your eye on outside of South Carolina, Kentucky?
The game that I am most intrigued about watching outside of our game is going to be LSU at Ole Miss, partly because LSU is our next opponent, so we want to scout them, see where they're sitting. You kind of have to recalibrate how you feel about them at this point. I think we gave them a ton of credit week 1 for going in and beating Clemson, but that win has become less and less impressive each week that has gone by. So maybe they aren't as good as we thought they were. They beat Florida, but Lagway threw 5 picks. So I think that this game against Ole Miss is going to be the true barometer of how good LSU actually is. And then we got thrown an additional wrinkle. Apparently, Kiffin's daughter is dating one of the Weeks brothers, starting linebacker for LSU. I forget which one it is, but he has acknowledged them and their relationship, saying that we should take the over as if they're going to run up the score because he's upset about it. Lane is a master troller, but yeah, I had enough reason to watch that game already, but that is going to definitely add another element to it.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a great game, and yeah, there's a lot of layers to that. Gotta love college football. For me, I mean, everyone is probably looking at that Alabama-Georgia game or the Oregon-Penn State game. I'm actually looking at Auburn and at A&M. Auburn got hosed against Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is a great team. It actually came out that John Mateer had a hand injury and he got surgery, so we'll be monitoring that, especially as Oklahoma is set to come to Columbia in a few weeks. But I mean, the officiating was awful. It almost felt like the LSU South Carolina game last year, where you feel like South Carolina should have won the game, and the officiating stepped in and said no. I think Auburn fans were kind of feeling that this week, and so I think Auburn, they got some talent, and so I'd like to see how they rebound. A&M has just kind of been a quiet. They beat Notre Dame, obviously, but no one really talking about them in the top tier of the conference. So I would love to see that game and whether Auburn can rebound and maybe Auburn is legit and Hugh Freeze might have something, or Texas A&M is able to put them down and kind of assert themselves and say, hey, we're up there with the LSUs and the Georgias um, and the Alabamas in this conference, and we're gonna be relevant coming down the stretch. So I think that's going to be a great game to see and an interesting result from that. So, but a lot of good games. This is one of the top weekends. We talked about week one, all the great matchups, and I think there's even more this week, and we've gotten to see obviously some action leading into this and have a sense of who's real and who's not. But this could be a real separation weekend for the college football landscape. So with that, we're going to dive into the DB Blitz, and we're talking gambling. Let's get these picks pulled up and records there.
Let's get these
Producer
records.
Ross.
Let's get these records pulled up.
Again, the DB Blitz is also sponsored by Touchdowns 5 Points. Go get you a Philly cheesesteak, best in Columbia, cold drinks, great place to watch a game. Touchdowns 5 Points. Ross, you getting the records up? I have them here. I'll read them out. Thomas 12-7-1, and BD is 6-13-1. Pretty rough go for me. I'm trying to get back on track. I advise to tail Thomas until I get right and prove myself. But I think I'm gonna have a good week this week. I feel it. I feel it in my plums. Down in my plums. All right. I will go with my picks first. Ross, can you please put them up on the screen? All right. First pick, Washington +8. This is also a very underrated game this week. Washington has Ohio State coming to town. Washington isn't ranked, but they should be, in my opinion. They've shown a lot of things, albeit, they haven't been, slaying dragons, but they're beating the hell out of everyone they play. I think their offense is averaging 58 points a game. I like their quarterback, and this is a really underrated home field advantage. I think they have the second longest home winning streak in the country, behind Georgia, and they these fans get loud. I think at one point they had the highest decibel recording for a college football stadium. I don't know if they're still number one or not, but they're definitely in the top 5. And so this is going to be a rowdy environment. Julian saying, yeah, you beat Texas, but you did it at home. I mean, I think these young quarterbacks, it's been good to fade Arch in the shoe. That was a good move. Fade Bryce Underwood and Norman. That was a good move. So I'm fading the young quarterback in the tough environment. And Washington's just a good team. So give me the 8. I'm not saying they're going to win, but I do think they keep this to a one possession, and I like having the 8 in my pocket. Notre Dame -4. This line actually opened around a touchdown, and it's moved down. I just think this is must win for Notre Dame. They have to have this game, obviously, or they're going to be eliminated from CFP contention. Arkansas, I bet on them last week. They're up 28-10, and they flounder the game against Memphis. I mean, Taylor Green, he's athletic and he can do some things, but just boneheaded mistakes down the stretch. This Arkansas team might start to tailspin. And again, crossing my fingers that we could maybe get Sam Pittman to come maybe coach up our O-line. That's a pipe dream, but I like Notre Dame in this game. Must win. They have the talent. CJ Carr, he showed some moxie against Miami week 1 on the road. So I don't think he'll have issues, even though this is at Arkansas. So I'm going to take Notre Dame -4. Iowa +7.5. They are playing Indiana. Indiana just came off a shellacking of Illinois. That game was ugly. I bet on Illinois. That was crazy. But I just think I like Iowa at Kinnick Stadium. They always seem to slay a giant in Kinnick Stadium each year. They've gotten Ohio State a few times, Michigan a few times. Not saying Indiana is a world beater, but they're looking legit. But I think getting them away from home, where they've played really well, and then also in a tough environment. Iowa's also showed the ability to actually move the ball and score this season. So you're not just betting on their defense to hold. I think they can put up some points, and so they should be able to cover this number at 7.5. I got the hook if they lose by a touchdown in this game, and I trust them at Kinnick Stadium, and wave to the kids, and hopefully they cover. Oregon +3.5. I'm taking the points with this one, but I think Oregon's going to win this game outright. I know Penn State's coming off a bye. It's the whiteout game. Blah, blah, blah. Oregon, I just think is really good. They're really well coached. Penn State hasn't played anybody this year. I mean, they haven't looked really, and maybe that's just because they're sluggish and they're underestimating their opponent, but they just haven't. I think everyone was kind of on their dick and said they were the best team in the country, and I just don't believe really that much in Penn State as far as what they can do against big teams in big games. I mean, James Franklin's record speaks for itself. I know he's gotten a couple monkeys off his back, but yeah, he's still like wins 10% of these type of games while he's at Penn State. So I'm just going to trust the data on this one. Oregon's a great team. I think they go in and win this outright, but I like having 3 and a hook in my pocket just in case Penn State kicks a game-winning field goal or something. And then obviously I got the Cox -6.5. We talked about it. This should be a game that we dominate. Hopefully, it's a game where we put everything together. We've seen some solid defensive performances so far this year. I think we look good offensively, albeit some mistakes against Missouri. But I just think Kentucky is a bottom feeder, freshman quarterback, night game, Willie B, sellout. Let's just make it a living hell for this freshman, and I think the offense will be able to put up some points, and I think we win this by 2 touchdowns. I know we had last year against Kentucky, we were 10-point underdogs going up there, and we beat them by 20 or 25 or something like that. So I just, I know Vegas doesn't love us right now. No one really loves us right now. No metric out there would say that South Carolina is a good team or a team to bet on. But I just think it all comes together this weekend, and we beat the shit out of Kentucky. So
good stuff.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it since you're the guru.
You got my picks for me, Ross? All right. So I got Georgia -3. Georgia has won 33 consecutive home games. So that is clashing with the Bama has won 9 out of the last 10 games against Georgia. Although I think that dates back to when Kirby was actually on Bama's staff. I think that with it being in Athens, Georgia does enough to win this game. And then I have Tennessee -7.5 against Mississippi State. Mississippi State has surprised everybody, I believe. by starting 4-0. I don't think that anybody other than Mississippi State fans thought they were going to be able to beat Arizona State. But I do think that Tennessee's really good. They probably should have won that game against Georgia. They've looked like a complete team. They have a great offense. They have a very good defense, and I think that they can cover 7.5 against Mississippi State. Florida State -7 on Friday night against Virginia. This will kind of be Florida State's first test since that Week 1 upset of Alabama. So it could be. This is kind of the what was the Bama game a fluke? Did they surprise Bama Week 1, or are they for real? I think that they're good, and I think that they do enough to cover a touchdown against Florida State. We're on the same page with Notre Dame over Arkansas. I also was on Arkansas against Memphis last week and watched their defense absolutely fall apart in the second half. Notre Dame has struggled on offense a little bit this year. You know, their run game hasn't been what it was expected to be with the backs that they had coming back. But because Arkansas's defense looks so bad against Memphis, I think that Notre Dame moves the ball enough to cover a touchdown. And, you know, Notre Dame's strength is their defense. I think they slow down Taylor Green enough to cover a touchdown. And then last, I'm also on South Carolina for all the reasons that we covered in the breakdown. I believe that we can cover a touchdown, and I hope that we come out and have our most impressive performance of the season and win by a couple touchdowns. I will say that this is my first max bet of the season for a college game. Something that I don't think that we've covered enough is that whether you are tailing us or whether you are gambling on your own, you should never really bet more than you can afford to lose, guys. It's something that I like to call practicing responsible units. You know, everybody's unit is going to be different depending on how much money you have, how much money you make, how much you're willing to potentially lose. But you should never put yourself in a position where even if you lose every single bet you place in one weekend, you should be able to pay that off whatever your payout day is. But with that being said, I did put as much as I'm willing to put on one game at a time on South Carolina -6.5 this week. But that's all I got. I'm not gonna divulge my units quite yet.
That's why they're called units, Ross. That's why you call them units, so you don't reveal how much money. Maybe once we have a bigger
following, maybe a couple sponsorships, I can let people know what I'm putting down on a weekly basis. But for now, I'm going to keep my units private.
No, that's great. Yeah, let's hope I can get back on track. And Thomas has been crushing it early in the year with his picks. No Madcock this week because Clemson is on a bye. So the Madcock's been doing well, 2-1 on the season. So once I think we're on a bye next week when Clemson plays. So the next Madcock won't be for a couple weeks. But again, practice responsible units, like Thomas said. That's going to put a wrap on this episode of the Touchdowns podcast. Thank you all for listening. Please go like, subscribe, leave us a comment on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen or watch us. And again, we appreciate it. And as always, go Cox.